Every president in American history has disliked the press coverage that he got. What's unusual is none before this has declared war in the first week. He needs an enemy.
I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are.
The president was did he literally just forget?
You presented as the timeline for how this went down.
We always have an adversarial relationship, and that in some cases is completely healthy and natural. This is a little beyond adversarial.
We are supposed to have a thick skin. We are supposed to be dispassionate observers. We are not bringing ourselves to the table as part of the story. We are being brought into the story, and it's a very uncomfortable place to be.
You've got to try to cut through the clutter and try to focus on the things that actually matter. I mean, now it's, things are happening.
President Trump's embattled National Security Advisor, General Michael Flynn, stepping down Monday night in a firestorm of criticism after misleading Vice President Mike Pence and others about his conversations with the Russian ambassador to the United States.
It's day 25 of the Trump presidency, and the White House has been hit with its biggest scandal to date. The president's National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, has had to resign amidst reports that he'd had secret contacts with Russia before Trump took office.
These have been very, tumultuous weeks for a new president. To have a national security advisor get forced out so early on is rather unprecedented to see something happen that quickly.
Right now, this briefing room is a place you have to be.
I hear you. This is Jeff here at the briefing room.
Michael Flynn's shock resignation draws a big crowd to Sean Spicer's daily press briefing.
The challenge for the White House is to make sure that it stays ahead of us. And that's why, some of these briefings can be as contentious as they are.
Good afternoon. Happy Valentine's Day. I can sense the love in the room.
The big immediate question is, what did the president know and when did he know it? When did the president find out that Flynn had not told the truth?
We've been reviewing and evaluating this issue with respect to General Flynn on a daily basis for a few weeks. The president was very concerned that General Flynn had misled the vice president and others.
Why would the president, if he was notified 17 days ago that Flynn had misled the vice president and other officials here, and that he was a potential threat to blackmail by the Russians, why would he be kept on for almost 3 weeks?
Well, that assumes a lot of things that are not true. This was an act of trust. Whether or not he actually misled the vice president was the issue. And that was ultimately what led to the president asking for and accepting the resignation of General Flynn. That's it, pure and simple. It was a matter of trust. Thank you, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Happy Valentine's Day!
It's very haphazard. The briefing happens, but then there's still so many other questions to develop in the intervening hours, and you go up the press secretary's office, is out that hallway, up the steps, and...
2 hours after the briefing, a selected group of journalists is invited to what's called a gaggle, an off-camera meeting with Sean Spicer in his office.
So you got something? So there's been an exodus out of Sean Spicer's office, and hello?
The gaggle has revealed another twist. Trump had known for over 2 weeks that Flynn had discussed sanctions with the Russians, but Trump didn't inform his vice president, Mike Pence. Pence had found out about it by reading the Washington Post.
Why was Mike Pence kept in the dark when the White House counsel knew about it?
You cannot have your national security advisor running around misleading senior administration officials, especially the vice president. We know that
despite the press team's best efforts, the Russia story isn't going away.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel.
Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived in Washington. But after Flynn's resignation, the press corps are hungry to question Trump on his relationship with Russia.
my friend, Prime Minister.
The protocol of a joint press conference is that 4 journalists are allowed to ask questions.
Again, thank you.
But it's the leaders who decide which journalists to call on.
We'll take a couple of questions. David Brody, that's Christian Broadcasting. David?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Katie from Town Hall. Where's Katie? Right there. Katie?
Thank you, Mr. President.
For the second time this week, Trump ignores the major networks. Instead, he selects questions from 2 small conservative news outlets. Neither asked directly about his links with Russia.
President, are you going to answer any questions about your associates' contacts with the Russians during the campaign, sir?
Mr. President, can you guarantee that nobody on your campaign had any contacts with the Russians? Mr. President, any questions on Russia? Mr. President.
The idea that 4 reporters, 2 domestic and 2 foreign, in 2 events, so 8 total questioners, and no direct questions about the biggest news story, by far the biggest news story of the week, is insane.
We've got a huge story going on right now on the Russians. We've got a blockbuster front-page story in the New York Times alleging contacts between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, Russian intelligence, and the issue doesn't come up in a press conference because he's calling on friendly news outlets. I mean, it's really amazing. They had to work very hard to find, to be able to call on 2 reporters who would not ask that question. I mean, that takes some doing. I wanted to, jump up and say, wait a minute, you fired him. Why did you fire him? No explanation.
While the major networks feel ignored, this is an opportunity for 23-year-old Trey Yingst, White House correspondent for the newly formed conservative outlet, One American News.
Now, I asked the president what he thought about that story that came out in the New York Times. I asked the president about that phone call that
is such a unique opportunity for a young journalist to have. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's something that I'm extremely excited about. I think it gives other outlets and other viewers and other readers an opportunity to feel like they're connected to this White House as well.
Bringing new people in is great. It is helpful. These people represent audiences that have real readers and listeners and viewers. What we don't want is for any administration to either handpick and get the questioners that they think are best to help put out their message instead of going out here and defending their policies every day.
I don't think people realize how small this place is, how small the White House is.
I know. This is essentially our home, and it's been our home for a very long time. This used to be Franklin Roosevelt's swimming pool.
I mean, it's not very comfortable here, right? There are mice in this building. My cell phone doesn't work at my desk.
You're there at 4 a.m., you're not sleeping for a week.
It's a vibrant, dynamic, a little strange place to be right now.
It's open press. I would get here now because we're lining up.
We're going to get a pool call soon.
Press conference, 12:30 East Room, open press, the president.
Wow. The Russia crisis is threatening to engulf the White House. At the last minute, Sean Spicer's daily briefing is cancelled, and Trump announces his first solo press conference as President of the United States.
I got a call. He's having a press conference. Come to the White House.
When I saw the note that there was going to be a press conference in an hour, I raced over.
Just another example of never a dull moment.
So chaotic. Never have seen such short notice for a press conference. I had a sense that it was going to be a pretty contentious affair.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
God bless America, and let's take some questions. Yes, John.
I just want to get you to clarify, because it's a very important point. Can you say definitively that nobody on your campaign had any contacts with the Russians?
When Trump has a story that he doesn't like, he is very good at diverting.
Russia is fake news. This is fake news put out by the media. The false, horrible fake reporting, makes it much harder to make a deal with Russia.
It was an hour and 17 minutes where the President of the United States repeatedly insulted reporters to our faces, and the audience is being told not to trust us.
Never seen more dishonest media than, frankly, the political media. Take a look at some of your shows. The tone is such hatred. The public doesn't believe you people anymore. Now, maybe I had something to do with that. I don't know. Story after story after story is bad. I won. There's zero chaos. We are running, this is a fine-tuned machine. And the press should be ashamed of themselves.
He's resetting his presidency, or trying, after 4 tough weeks with leaks and problems and firing. He was just trying to reset, and that was his way of doing it.
He goes out in that press conference, and suddenly he's back to the Trump that's like, okay, come at me. And I'll shut you down if I don't like you, and I'll insult you. And I'll tell you to sit down.
Okay, sit down. I understand the rest of your question. Quiet, quiet, quiet. Peter, should I let him have a little bit more? Sit down. I don't have to do that. I don't have to tell you what I'm going to do in North Korea. Wait a minute. I don't have to tell you what I'm going to do in North Korea. And eventually you guys are going to get tired of asking that question.
He's never been in a place where if he tells a lie, it's going to get reported as a lie. This is a different kind of press corps.
I guess it was the biggest electoral college win since Ronald Reagan.
You said today that you had the biggest electoral margin since Ronald Reagan with 304 or 306 electoral votes. In fact, President Obama got 365 in 2000.
Well, I'm talking about Republican.
President Obama 332 and George H.W. Bush 426 when he won as president. So I guess my question is, why should Americans trust you when you accuse the information they receive of being fake when you're providing information that's...
Well, I don't know. I was given that information. I've seen that information around, but it was a very substantial victory. Do you agree with that?
You're the president.
Okay, thank you. That's a good answer.
You can push back and you can say, no, we're not fake news, sir. We are real news. And, you know, at some point, the President of the United States has to deal with reality, has to deal with real news. And I think the only thing that's worse than fake news is the denial of real news.
Aren't you concerned, sir, that you are undermining the people's faith in the First Amendment, freedom of the press in this country, when you call stories you don't like fake news? Why not just say it's a story I don't like?
We just keep doing our job. You know, nobody ever got into becoming a reporter to be loved. And if he wants to go after us, that's his decision. I'm not sure that's a smart, long-term decision for building support in the country. 4 years to go.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't like to be lumped in with a group called a bunch of liars, and especially when that person that's doing it is the President of the United States of America. And by the way, when your job is to cover the President of the United States. But I don't know, it's hard to explain. I just kind of like, after a while, it just doesn't bother you anymore. You just go at your story, you ask your questions.
It is stressful and draining, but I feel such pride that we, in the face of all this, did our very best to present the most honest account of what happened here in this building to our audience each day. Because if they don't hear it from us, I'm not sure whether they'll know the truth.